Hello everyone. Today I want to tell you 3 practices that really can help a lot and really work a lot when you're suffering from whatever, anxiety, stress, when you're not okay. 3 simple practices. This is stuff I will make a separate video about, like the type of therapies and more powerful tools. These are just simple tools that you can use and do yourself, by yourself at home at any point, that are really, really useful and actually do work for anyone. And number 1 is mindfulness. So a lot of people are aware of it, but it's not necessarily something that works for everyone or that everyone is aware that it works. It actually does. I think the key idea when you're practicing mindfulness is really this idea of like being not reactive. You're just observe, and it's really extremely difficult. And that's why I'm saying this. It takes a lot of practice. You're probably not going to get it right at the very beginning, but it is extremely helpful. It's like a tool, it's a support tool that aligns you and supports you at whatever stage you are in your healing process. And the best type of mindfulness is very simple mindfulness. So paying attention to your breath or paying attention to different parts of your body. So it can be a body scan. And eventually, ideally, a practice of mindfulness that eventually builds up to paying attention to your thoughts and observing your thoughts. Personally, I find this bit to be the most difficult one, but also the most powerful one. The bit that really adds enormous amount of value, because it allows you to become aware of what's happening, and so allows you to disidentify with the inner voices and with the inner things that are happening within you. It also helps you to connect with your emotions, because a lot of times, especially for people who are overthinking, I am definitely one who has a tendency for overthinking, what's happening is that it is energy of difficult emotions that is being spurred, that is being shot into your system, but because it's painful, you build that mechanism system, that defensive system, defensive mechanism system, which is basically to transform those in thoughts. And we all know that overthinking can be absolutely exhausting. It doesn't feel good. And when you practice mindfulness long enough that you become able to actually observe your thoughts, even just a tiny little bit, like not react, not getting caught into them, eventually you start realizing, you start allowing that, allowing and realizing that there is an underlying shot of some kind of emotion that you should, if you are really connected to your body, you feel it in your body a lot as well, like an energy coming up your spine, or coming up in your legs, or in your arms, or in your shoulders, or somewhere else. And oftentimes that energy carries also like an emotions, and usually is a pretty bad one. So I focus a lot on shame, because personally I found that, not just in myself, but observing people, shame is one of the most difficult emotions. And oftentimes when we are overthinking, people would do anything not to feel shame. So that helps. So it is difficult when you're so conditioned to avoid that emotion at all costs. Mindfulness is extremely helpful to realize that oftentimes your thoughts are actually some difficult emotions. Could be fear, could be shame, and feel them instead. And that helps a lot, because you're actually doing the work. You're actually healing. You're feeling what you're supposed to feel. And also because you don't become hyper-reactive to that. All right. So mindfulness, there is much more to say about it, but there are lots of people I personally really enjoy Tara Brach, because she has an energy of enormous compassion, and that I found that the way she explains what mindfulness is about and the way she guides people into the mindfulness practice extremely helpful, because it really comes from a place of compassion and love. So I would recommend Tara Brach in terms of some ideas about practicing mindfulness. The second thing that I personally find really helpful is to get out of your comfort zone. Do something. It can be something incredibly small. It needs to be something that challenges you, something that is at the limit. The sweet stuff is always at the limit. So something that pushes you a little bit beyond, that is not overwhelming, but getting out of your comfort zone, exposing yourself. If you're really having a really tough time, that can be making yourself a bit vulnerable with someone you trust, and start with the person you feel is least likely to judge you, or instinctively you feel less threatened by, and share something with them. So at the very beginning, there are different stages of the healing process, and people have different histories. And I imagine a lot of people that watch my channel had serious stuff, may suffer from serious. They may have had serious trauma, either in their own lives or in their ancestral line. Normally at the beginning it is a lot about vulnerability, it is a lot about really painful stuff and love and feeling safe. So that would mean starting to be vulnerable with someone. And obviously we'll start with the person you trust the most, or the person that, it doesn't have to be your best friend, it can be someone else that for whatever reason gives you an idea of being a person that will not judge you, that will support you. And as you move along the healing process, eventually, and a lot of other people may be already there because they don't have necessarily to heal serious past trauma, they just have the conditioning of their families and society which is impacting them. And in that case, or at that stage, it's about really getting out of your comfort zone. And that could be anything. It could be walking up to a person in the street and ask them a number of questions. But the important thing is that it does involve, so it could involve like jumping off a cliff in the water, it can involve some physical challenge, it can involve a lot of different things, of course. I tend to think that those that really work a lot, especially when the underlying stuff is shame-based, they do involve people. They do involve approaching people and getting out of your comfort zone. And the third one is the practice of self-soothing, of self-love, of changing this narrative. And even this one cannot be, I mean, I'm sure we hear that a lot, but it's a practice that involves a bit of awareness, because awareness is really important, like observing yourself, but so that's what mindfulness helps us to develop. And then it goes beyond that. It can be, it's not self-indulgent, it's really taking care of ourselves. It can be just touching ourselves, touching our heart, our chest, and hugging it. It can be making up the bed, it can be cleaning the house, but mostly it really involves with taking the time to stay with yourself, to connect with yourself, to look at that person that you are. And again, it really depends a lot at what stage you are in your healing process, but normally it involves you connect with your inner child. It doesn't have to be the inner child though, because we are vulnerable even when we are adults at times. But essentially, spending time with yourself. And you can start, if you're new to this practice, you can start with observing your body, staying with your body, feeling where the tension is. If you're like lying down and just trying to connect with you and you see that you can't do it because either you're thinking a lot or something like this, feeling those tensions and staying with them, accepting them.